Hello friends, in this video we are going to learn about functions in Python. So when you will build an application or work on a project, you will often come across cases where you may need to perform the same task at multiple places of your program or your project. Now in such cases, will you go on repeating the same group of statements at multiple places of your program? So let me give you an example. Let's say a person has given you a number and asked you to do three things. So the first thing is print the factorial of the number. Print factorial of given number. Second thing is add 3 to the originally given number and find the factorial of that number. And lastly, let's say he has asked you to square the original number that he had given you. Square the original number and find the factorial. Square the original number and find the factorial. So in such cases, how will you approach the problem? One way to do is that, let's say first we take the number as input from keyboard. Let's say we take a variable. Let's do it in a different cell. Let's take a variable and store the input given from keyboard. Let's give the message, please enter the number. Right? Now if we run the cell, it will prompt us to enter a number. Let's say we enter the number 4. Fine. Now what is the first thing? The first thing that we have to do is print the factorial of the given number. That is, we have to find out 4 factorial. So for that, first we need to convert the number from string to integer. So for that we'll do num equal to int num, and if we run the cell, the variable num has now been converted from string to integer. Now in the next cell we will write the logic for finding the factorial. Let's not alter the original variable num because we will require this variable for performing the other operations. So let's take a different iterator variable called I and let's assign the value of num to that variable. Let's take another variable called fact in which we will store the factorial of the number, and let's initialize this variable with a value 1. Now we'll use a while loop to find out the factorial, and the condition inside the while loop will be while I greater than equal to 1, and inside the loop we will write fact equal to fact into I, and then we'll write I equal to I minus 1 because we want to decrement the iterator variable in each iteration by 1. So after we come out of the loop, we'll print the factorial of 4. Fine. So I am not explaining the logic completely in this video. I have already explained the logic of finding factorial of a number in one of my previous videos, the description of which has been given in the description section of this video. So if you don't understand the logic, you can check out that video. Okay, so in this way we can print out the factorial of the number. So if we run the cell, you can see it gives us the factorial of 4. Now our first operation is completed. Now our second operation is to add 3 to the original number and find the factorial of that number. So what will we do? We will add 3 to the original variable num and we will assign back the value to the same variable. So it will be num equal to num plus 3, right? So let's run the cell, and now this variable num is containing 7. So again we have to find out the factorial of 7. For that we will repeat the same logic. We'll have a iterator variable I and assign the value of num to that, and then we, using the while loop, we will find out the factorial. So let's run the cell again, and it gives us the factorial of 7. So we are left with one more operation, and that is to square the original number and then find the factorial of that square. So let's square the original number and assign back the value to the same variable num equal to num exponential 2. So if we run the cell, num is now contains 16, right? Now we will again repeat the same logic to print the factorial of 16, and if we run the cell, so it is quite a large value. Let's not focus on the absolute value of the factorial. Let's focus on the process. So if we consolidate the entire code, it will be like this. First we had this line. Let's consolidate our code in a single cell. We first took this line, then converted that from string to integer, then determined the factorial of the original number, then added 3 to the original number, then repeated the factorial code, then squared the number, and then again repeated the original code. So to perform such a little operation, we had to write this many lines of code, right? So in such cases where you need the same functionality at different places of your program, function comes to our rescue. A function is a block of related statements that performs a specified task. Function avoids code repetition and makes your code reusable. So let's see how we can rewrite this code with much less number of lines by using functions. So let's create a new cell. So a function mainly has two parts. One is function declaration or function definition, and the second is function calling. So let's first see how we have to define a function. So for defining a function, the first thing is that you have to mention the name of the function, and before that you may have to mention the keyword def, that is def. Let the name of our function be factorial. So def factorial, and after mentioning the name of our function, we have to give parenthesis, and then we have to give a colon. Now inside this parenthesis, we have to pass the variable on which we are trying to perform the operation. So in our case, let the name of the variable be num. So we are interested in finding the factorial of the variable num. That's why we pass that inside the parenthesis, and this is called function argument. A function can have one or more arguments or even zero arguments. That is, it may not have any arguments at all. So inside the function, when you press enter, you can see it automatically gives us some blank spaces at the front, which means a new block of statements. As I have just mentioned, a function is a block of related statements. So it means a new block of statements is starting from here. So inside the function, we have to write the lines that we want to execute. So in our case, we have to write these lines. And remember, as I have also previously mentioned, in Python, all the statements which are inside the same block should maintain the same indentation, that is the same number of white spaces in front of them. So all these statements are inside the same function block, so they should also maintain the same indentation. So let's put a tab here and let them maintain the same indentation. Now these two statements are again inside another block, that is the while block. So another indentation will be added for them. So let's put another tab for them. So this means these two statements are inside this while block, and these four statements I equal to num, fact equal to 1, this while and this print, all these are inside the same block, and that is the function block. Fine guys, so this was all about the definition of the function. But it's not enough to just define the function. If you don't call the function, none of the statements inside the function will be executed. So we have to call the function. Now how can we call the function? To call the function, you have to first mention the name of the function. So what is the name of our function? It's factorial, right? So let's copy and paste the name here. And inside the parenthesis, you have to pass the value on which you want to perform the operation. So in our case, we want to find the factorial of 4. So we have to pass 4 here. So what will happen when you execute this line? This value 4 will be assigned to this variable num. So the function argument num will currently contain the value 4, and then the control will enter inside the function, and all these statements will be executed one by one. So if we just execute this statement by pressing Alt plus Enter, you get the expected value, that is 24. So friends, you may have noticed that although this function is performing a particular task, but it is not returning any value to its caller, right? So let's say instead of printing the factorial from inside the function, I want the function to return me the factorial, and then after receiving the factorial from the function, I want to print it. So in that case, it will be like this. We have to mention it like this: return fact, and then as this function is returning some value, we will obviously have to receive that value in a variable. Let the variable be f, and in this variable we have to receive the value returned by this function, and then we print this variable f. And if we run the cell, we will again get the same value. So you can think of it like this: you are a boss of a company, you call a subordinate employee of the company through this line. Let the function factorial be a subordinate employee of the company. So you call that subordinate employee, that is, you call the function, you pass some data to that function or that employee, and after you pass the data to the employee, you ask the employee to perform a particular task with that data. So the employee stores the data that you pass to him in this variable num and then performs the operation as required, and once the operation is completed, the employee returns you the end result through this variable fact. And when the employee returns you the result, you thank him and you receive the result from him in this variable f. And then after receiving the end result from the employee, you do whatever you want to do with this variable. In this case, we have just simply printed the variable. So that's how it works. If we try to rewrite the above code by using function, it will become much more simpler. So these two lines will be there. Then this will be factorial of num. Then we will again add num equal to num plus 3. Then we will again call the factorial function. Okay, here we'll have to add a print statement to print the value that we received from the function. Then we'll have another print statement here. Then we will square the number again. We'll again call the function and print the received value. And if we run the cell now and enter the number 4 and press enter, it clearly gives us the 3 different results. So with very fewer number of lines of code, we could achieve the same result that we were earlier achieving by repeating the same code time and again. So that's the flexibility a function gives us. So in this function, we had only one argument, right? Similarly, we can have more than one argument in a function, and also we can return more than one value from a function. So let's see an example of that. Let's say we want to pass two different numbers and we want to calculate the addition, subtraction, multiplication and division result between those two numbers using a function. So let's say the name of the function is calculate, and we pass two different values as arguments, and then let's say we want to return the addition, subtraction, multiplication and division result. So we take four different variables: addition equal to a plus b, subtraction, or let's say sub equal to a minus b, multiplication equal to a into b, and division equal to a by b. And let's say we will return all these four values from the function. So we'll simply say return addition, comma sub, comma mult, comma div. So this function receives two values and performs the required operations between them and returns four different results. Now, as we are returning four different values from this function, we also need to have four different variables to store these values, right? So when we'll call the function calculate, and let's say we pass the values 30, 20, we will require four different variables to store the values returned by this function. So let the variables be a, comma b, comma c, comma d, and Now if we print the results returned by the function and run the cell, we'll get the correct values. So in this function, we passed two arguments and returned four different values from this function. So likewise, you can have any number of argument and can return any number of values from a particular function. Now, one more important thing is that the values that we specify in the parentheses while calling a function are called actual parameters or actual arguments, whereas the values that or the variables that we specify inside the parentheses while defining the function are called formal parameters. Now it is absolutely not necessary that the names of the formal parameters and the names of the actual parameters have to be same. It is absolutely not necessary. For example, we could easily have a variable called num1 and assign a value 30 to it, and another variable called num2 and assign a value 20 to it. Now we could easily pass these two variables num1 and num2 inside the function, and in this case also if we run the cell, it would have given us the same result, that is it would have worked completely fine. So the name of the actual parameters and the name of the formal parameters need not be necessarily the same. So friends, that's it for this video. So I have given you some exercises. Please complete all of them and let me know if you have any confusion with any of the questions. So for one or two questions I have also given you some hint, like this question, what will be the overall structure of the function, and for this question as well I have given you some hint how you should approach the problem. So if you still have any queries or any confusion regarding these questions, you can let me know that in the comment section, and also let me know your feedback about this video. So if you have liked my video, please subscribe to my channel so that you get notified when I upload more Python and data science related videos. And please don't forget to like and share my video so that it reaches a greater audience, so that they also get benefited from this. Thanks a lot for watching.